Okay, so we have Ken Kunin.
Ken Kunin, yes.
Kunin, yes.
Bart, you got me.
Thanks for joining me, buddy. Ken's from Brisbane. He's a singer-songwriter. Ken, can we just start with, firstly, just a bit about your background, where you're originally from, mate?
Yeah, look, I'm from a sleepy little town called Los Angeles. I've been out here in Brisbane for the last 15 years, and I've been in the music industry, I guess, since the late 80s, where I was in different bands and whatnot, fronted a whole bunch, and used to tour around and made a fair few records through the years, and gave it a little 10-year hiatus, and been back at it the last about 3 years.
Okay, so that's great. I wasn't aware of that. That's interesting. And your history or your growing up with different types of music, has that influenced you much in the way you have written your songs, or is it from your own style?
I think definitely it does. I think what you grow up with tends to provide a little bit of that fabric for the way that you probably hear how music develops, and think of it, if you're sewing a shirt, you know, if you grew up listening to bits of Led Zeppelin and bits of Bob Marley and different singer-songwriters like Neil Young, you'd probably have a different experience than if you grew up with, 15 years later and you were listening to say hip-hop or jazz or whatever it may be. So for me, it was a lot of classic rock and a lot of what I would sort of consider timeless songwriters.
Interesting enough you should say that, because my influences when I was growing up too, just to be quick, was reggae and the blues type style from America in particular. Like the Doobie Brothers and stuff like that, which has influenced my music as well. Thanks for that, Ken. So Ken, you've started On Song International. Can you tell us a bit about what that involves, mate? Yeah,
that started about 6 months ago, and essentially the idea was watching some TV with my daughter about 6-7 months ago, and it was one of these shows that's basically a glorified karaoke show where people are singing covers and whatnot, and I don't want to name names or shame anyone. And my daughter was saying, "Wow, this is really unbelievable. I don't think the person that's singing the song probably has any real connection with the song." And I said, "Well, honey, that's because they didn't write it." And what I had noticed was there was a hell of a void, particularly at basically commercial TV. There's a bit on cable and satellite, but in terms of your main stations, there's nothing that actually celebrates people that actually bring and create original music. And so I started talking to a friend and a partner with that, and we decided, well, let's do something about it, and started to put the wheels in motion to start a show in which we've shot some pilots, and we got some unbelievable interest from some great singer-songwriters, and it's in bands, and it's just grown from a concept to something that's really taken a lot of shape and got some momentum.
Well, that's awesome, Ken. That's great, mate. So with over 25 years in the music business as a singer-songwriter, of course you're a band leader as well as a label owner. Your band called The Crooked Sky, you just got you were performing, I believe, the other night on the show. We did a fundraiser in Redcliffe with 6 other acts that we've featured on Song both on our website and our Facebook page, and that was terrific. That was for a youth center over in Redcliffe, and just a big night though, because I had to basically provide 6 hours of entertainment, which in and of itself is a pretty good sized undertaking. It pretty much is, mate. Yeah, you're not wrong there. Did you have much? Have you had much? And did you have much as far as turnout goes? Are they coming to you with great ideas and songs, or are you helping them along those terms of finding their way in terms of their music? Look, people have been submitting since we sort of went online and we started to converse with social media. We've had hundreds of entries, and we've had 20, 30 really good ones. The TV pilots that we've created, and we're in the middle of editing right now, we feature 3 main artists, and there were 4 other artists as well. And I suppose what I enjoy the most part at this point is one, you got to be able to identify that someone's got that something that's unique in their talent. And when I ran a small record label, it was the same thing. You wanted to, if you had 20 things, maybe there was the one thing that jumped out from the stack and said, this is unique. But that said, the thing that brings me a lot of pleasure are finding those diamonds in the rough that just need
sometimes a little bit of mentoring and say, look, you're spot on this, but have you thought about approaching whether it's a song or whether it's how to perform? Have you considered this angle? And that's just part of artist development, really.
It certainly is, buddy. And I must admit, when I was involved with Street Kids up in the Sunshine Coast, we were doing something similar with the DJ, with their music and that, and they had some ideas. But you bring back a good point about the mentoring part. Some of them really need that good direction and have been maybe lacking something like that along the lines. But have you found with most of them that they have come right, and you can never stop asking questions and learning with music, can you?
Well, that's the thing. I think that the progression of any artist is that you get to improve and you get to add more tools to your toolkit, so to speak. And unlike, take a footy career where if you're 32, 33 years old, you're likely done. When you're 32, 33 years old as a musician, you should be way up the chain in terms of your skill level to where you were when you were 22. And hence, when you're 42, you ought to be better than at 32, where those skills can continue to flourish. I mean, a lot of people give the Rolling Stones grief that they're in their early 70s and they're still touring, and my sort of response to them would be, well, show me a rock band that's really any better at what they do than what they do. And secondly, what people also forget is, like, you look at someone like the Rolling Stones, or you look at someone like Willie Nelson, and you remember that their idols were these bluesmen that played to the day that they died. And so they didn't have this idea of, okay, yeah, I'm 65, I'm retired. It was like, I can play a guitar, I can sing, I can, play bass, whatever it may be, and that's who I am, and that's what I do, and I will continue to develop those skills. And I take my hat off to them. Yes,
I do too. It's quite interesting that you should say that. The other thing I should also point out was that you never stop learning with music either. It's always, you've got it if it makes you feel good with the music side of it, and it's making you, control your emotions and learning more. It's great to see the kids that are actually getting out there and doing that.
Look, and you bring up a good question. You say the kids. While we have featured some young artists, hey, look, I'm just as happy on our website or potential shows to feature a 60-year-old than I am a 16-year-old, because there's a certain wisdom that's going to come from that 60-year-old that you're not going to find from a 16-year-old. And so, to me, On Song is really about celebrating the song. And I don't care what the genre is. I don't care how old they are. I don't care where they come from. I don't care if they're a model. I don't care if they got 3 teeth in their mouth. If they have something that's genuine, if they have something that's authentic and moving and soulful, then I want to hear it. And I find that our audience, which is now basically globally grown out to about 160 nations, we got people following what we're doing, feels the same way.
Yeah, that's fantastic, mate. I think for me, I just quickly, I remember seeing something one day, and it spoke words to me too. I don't know how you feel about this, but music to me is like breathing. I don't get tired of breathing, and I don't get tired of music. Do you find that with yourself as well, and the kids in particular? Are they always striving for more?
I think so. I think that once, if you're a songwriter and you've actually written something that you're proud of, and that time that you can get through it, whether you're a piano player, a guitar player, whatever it may be, and it flows, and you realize, what, I own this for the rest of my days, then that is the stimulus to go write the next one and the next one, and that's at least for myself, that's part of the process that never gets old. Sometimes touring, sometimes being in the studio for endless periods of time, that can be a bit of a job, but the actual process of waking up, I don't know, on a Sunday morning, and you have a minute and you got a melody, or you have a phrase, or you got a progression that just comes together, that is for me, a very meditative and spiritual moment, and I want more of it.
Yeah, no, great. It's great. For those that are listening out there, I actually caught up with Ken on Facebook for the first time about a year ago when I was off air. I've got to bring it up. I've got to bring this up because I used to live there. Wynnum, where did you get the influence, or was it just sitting out the back one day having to think about it, or was there...
the song Living in Wynnum. That was a pretty good example of a Sunday morning session that where your best songs kind of write themselves themselves. And I had at that point lived in Wynnum for 14 years, this sort of sleepy Bayside community. And I thought, Wynnum's, it's not perfect, but there's some pretty amazing components to it. And
yes.
Coming from such a chaotic place like Los Angeles, Wynnum was needed as a little bit of a slowdown and a breath of fresh air. And I started playing a chord progression. I asked my daughter, what does this sound like? And she said, I could envision walking on the foreshore. And that's just the phrase "living in Wynnum" came in. And then this song just sort of got a life of its own, and we shot a little bit of a video, it's been a nice surprise.
It was very refreshing to hear it too, I tell you. Friends I went to school with in Brisbane certainly had some chats about it on Facebook when I started my page up and I was covering you in particular. It's great. Thank you so much, Ken. I think that the world needs the continuing support of original music, including yourself. I think it's what keeps the language of music breathing and evolving.
I agree. Otherwise, we just turn into a world of clubs and bars that are, recycling the same cover bands. And let's face it, it's one thing to have seen Led Zeppelin. It's another to hear the millionth rendition of Stairway to Heaven not done really well. I want to find out, who is the next Zeppelin. I want to find out who is the next, Neil Young. I want to know who the next, great Aretha Franklin is. They're out there. They're in their bedroom, and what we're trying to do is discover them.
Exactly right. No, you've nailed it on the head there, mate. Thank you so much, Ken. Now, the OnSong International Picnic Hill actually celebrates the language of music and supports the youth of the area overcoming the obstacles they face in their lives, mate. It sounds like
that went real well last week. Yeah, it was good.
I'm happy to hear that. We all are. I wish you all the best. I'm happy to carry on keeping in contact with you
as
great,
far
Martin.
As everything goes. I appreciate your support.
Yeah. Please keep us informed, and
we will.
Certainly...
And we'll shoot you through. We'll shoot you through some tracks that hopefully you'll enjoy, and your audience will enjoy as well.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you, Ken, for your time this morning. Ken Kunin in Brisbane, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, Ken.
All right, catch you later, Bart.
All right, see you, mate.